What is up, everyone? Welcome to Survivor Now podcast. Today, I'm so excited and a little disappointed to be talking to the 14th castaway eliminated from Australian Survivor, Titans vs. Rebels, and the first member of the jury. We have Aileen joining Nina and I. Aileen, it is so great to see you. Tell us about your viewing experience. How was it? Were you with friends and family?
Oh my God, honestly, I had the best time last night. And thank you, Nina and Matthew, for having me on the podcast. I was just with some close friends and my sister and my boyfriend, and I had a great time watching everything. I feel and had felt really good about this exit. The perfect way to go is a blind side. So I felt like I wasn't even anxious leading up to it. And it was just a beautiful moment.
That's so great to hear. And we're already well halfway through the season. We kind of want to start at the beginning. So, what was your strategy going into the game?
100%. So my strategy going into the game was I wanted to be a discreet, not overt leader because I wanted to make moves but not be seen as the person instructing them. And I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't someone's number two, which is a different strategy because I knew, watching many, many seasons of Survivor, if you can't target the number one, you take out the number two. So I was very happy being 3 or 4. And I knew that with my social skills, I'd be a social butterfly. I know not much is shown, but I was literally speaking to everyone and also wanted to have a couple of big shields in front of me. So I found that in Kirby and Feras. And I felt like, honestly, at the very beginning at Rebels, I was killing it, guys. I wasn't even considered to be someone to be voted out. And even with my episode 4 debut of dictating to everyone how the vote should go, miraculously after that, no one still saw me as a threat, which is wild to me. So, yeah.
It's
That's
so
awesome.
funny you mention your social game. We had so many previous castaways who were eliminated this season mention, hey, that what they didn't show was actually my relationship with Aileen. But I have to ask, I had so much fun following you on social media during the episode's airing. And to find out that you are also a fan of Lea Salonga, I have to ask, was your Survivor experience the movie in your mind that you had hoped
Oh
for?
my God, it was everything and more. And I love Lea Salonga. I've actually seen her at church in the Philippines before, and I've been to many of her concerts. But yes, it was the movie in my mind and more, and all the hunger, the tiresome, everything was just exacerbated on that island.
Amazing. And talking about your relationships and being a social butterfly, and he's correct. We have heard quite a few people be like, you didn't know, but I was actually with Aileen and this and that. We had a lot of chats. So, where were your alliances early on in the game? Where did that lie in the Rebels
Yeah,
camp?
100%. So I described myself as an onion with many layers at the beginning because, firstly, let's go in chronological order. Scott and I bonded day one over Broadway in the shelter, and then Garrick, Scott, and I were supposed to be ride or die three. But unfortunately, Scott was drifting towards Kirby and Ree, so we had to let that one go. And then night two, I remember having a lovely chat with Feras and Raymond under the stars while the Cuddle crew took up the shelter in the middle and stayed close to the fire. And we just talked about how we were all the misfits and how we should align together. So that solidified that alliance. And Garrick was there as well. With Kirby, I had a great relationship at the beginning. Her and I, we had mutual respect for being strong women who were strategic. But what she didn't realize was I think she had assumed that I would be in her alliance with Ree, Scott, and herself, but she never had asked. It was me pledging my allegiance to Ferris and Raymond in night two. And by the time it got to like day 7 or 10, where we had both voted together with the PETA and Tobias vote, she just automatically assumed I was with them. And at that point, I knew Kirby was going against Ferris, and I had to draw the line there.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I mean, but you've made it to the jury stage. A lot of people dream of making it this far into the game, but I've also heard some very mixed reactions from past castaways. So what is your feeling being the first juror? Is it bittersweet? Are you excited about this? What's going through your mind?
Well, of course, I would have loved to have made it further, right? But just the fact that I'm on the jury, the mayor of the jury, hopefully I'm able to convince everybody else or influence whoever comes by to look through all the options because I'm that type of person who I'm not just going to give away my vote because I like you. I'm going to look at all the moves that you've made in the game, all the subtle ones, especially. I'm all about the subtle moves and the social plays. And then hopefully I'll be able to explain to everyone coming in that, hey, you got to look at this from another perspective because you didn't play the game with this person for X amount of days. So keep your options open and find the most deserving winner for 500K.
That's a really good point of view. And before we bounce back a little bit, because we're on the jury and you're the first one, I love to know, what was that first morning after? For example, I've talked to people, I myself actually was quite anxious. Like, was that a dream? I'm all by myself after constantly being surrounded by people. What was your experience waking up that first morning? Good, bad? What was
Thank
it?
you so much for that question. And of course, Nina, you would understand because you played before. So it was, I think, the first 24 to 48 hours. Honestly, I have never felt more alone because you have been with this large merge group, plus all the cameras and all the producers. And suddenly you're in a room by yourself where, of course, you're filled with all these luxurious items and stuff. But you just have all that time to ponder about your game and what you could have done and what you should have done. And as much as that king size bed was amazing, all I could think about was just everything else. And so I felt quite isolated, I'm not going to lie. And I spent that time to journal and write how I felt because I knew once every single jury member after me would come in, it was more about socializing and hanging out with them instead of, having alone time.
Yeah, thank you for being honest with that, because I know sometimes it might be a little bit weird and I didn't want to pry too much, but that personally is something that I'm very curious about. And getting back to the game and you pondering your game, something that I would love to hear what you have to say about is when Kelly was going to get swapped to the other tribe to sabotage them. Who was supposed to go home that night? Do you think it would have happened? How was that?
Thanks for the question. So I definitely feel like I had a huge influence in who was going home that night. And it was 100% going to be Rihanna. And I confirmed that with Sarah after the game had finished. And this is the reason why. So Sarah had been left out of the vote multiple times. And unfortunately, because Kelly had switched her vote, she wasn't given the opportunity to make that choice to vote Alex out. So we had Alex and Sarah in the middle. And we had Kirby and Feras now drawing the line in the sand. And we definitely, thanks to Garrick's idea, wanted Bree out. And this is what I did to Sarah. I was like, Sarah, I'll pull you aside and have a one-on-one chat. Who are the power couples in this game? Alex and Peta, who got voted out? Peta. You have yourself and Tobias, who got voted out? Tobias. I said, who's the next power couple? And obviously I directed it to Kirby and Ree. I was like, if you go with those girls, you're going to be on another sinking ship because we're just going to vote out the next power couple. And you're, again, going to be on the wrong side of the numbers. Why don't you come with me? Join the boys, Garrick, Raymond, Feras, and myself, and Alex, because Alex had been with us as well. Let's vote with them, and then soon these boys are going to take out each other and us two women are going to make it far. And she ate that up. And let me tell you, in my confessional, I was like, I'm like the shepherd leading the lost lamb. And there's even this scene where she like hugged me at the well. She was like, thank you so much, Aileen. I was like, you're welcome.
I love that. I'm glad that we were able to talk about this because we would have never known.
I know. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, this is like my favorite part of doing these exit interviews is hearing all of the things that we missed because they can't fit everything into the episodes, but stuff that we did see. We saw you beg Feras and Kirby to stay united when the tribes swapped. How certain were you that they would oblige?
Not certain. Oh my God. I was like pulling at strings there, especially since I felt, at the Rebels camp, as soon as Peta and Tobias were voted out, there was this quick exchange where Kirby walks by me. This is when she thought I was still with her, which I could have been. Walked past and was like, Feras next. That's it. And I was like, oh my God, like I just pledged my allegiance to Feras. So what I did was I went to Feras and I said, Kirby's after you. And I was like, at this point in time, it's fine to put these two targets up against each other because they'd be trying to vote each other out and I would stay out of it. But then now we get swapped to the Titans tribe. And I realize, oh my God, like if we start taking each other out, then when we come to merge, we're not going to have the numbers. So you have to switch your strategy. And that's what I tried to do. And unfortunately, the line had been drawn so hard in the sand that those two were just gunning for each other.
Yeah. It looked like right then and there, as soon as you pitched the idea of let's stay together for the first vote, that just them two looking at each other in full agreement that that was not going to be the case.
They're like,
Yes.
Yeah.
But now I'm so, because you had a great moment. It wasn't great for you, I would say, but an entertaining moment for viewers at Tribal Council, where this was where Garrick was blindsided. But you had the read. You said, Feras, play your idol for Garrick. Garrick said, Feras, play your idol for me. And he chose not to in that moment. Did your relationship with Feras change when he decided not to play the idol on Garrick?
I don't think it necessarily changed, but I think I had proven that, look, you got to listen to your basically number one strategist at this point, because bad things happen when you don't listen to Aileen. So I think, trying to convince Feras to play the idol for Garrick, that was also, I understand why he didn't do that, because let's backtrack a little bit. And basically, when I realized that the Titans weren't with us, because I noticed Charles and Valeria lying to me, Scott quickly walks by. And the relationship between Scott and I was like, we were still in opposite alliances, but still trying to work with each other and keep each other's names out of the vote. He walked by me and said, "It's not you." So I was like, okay, I trust that. And I still hadn't known whether it was going to be Garrick, Raymond, or Feras. So I took that time at Tribal Council to observe and see where everybody's heads was at. And it was only until people were going up to the voting booth and I watched their elbows and their motions of how they were voting, I realized it was Garrick. And so I only gave Feras literally a few seconds of my pitch to play the idol for Garrick. So I understand under that pressure, it's really difficult, but I made the right call.
Do you think just because this was brought up in last night's episode, Feras literally says, like, my plans get approved by Aileen. Do you think that Garrick vote, him actually seeing that you were on point, like your instincts were where they should be, that was the moment that he was like, no, for real, everything is going through her? Or was it a little bit before that as well?
I definitely think it was before that as well, because the night that we did the split vote on Alex and Tobias and Feras played his idol, I actually told him prior, you don't need to play your idol. I'm convinced that you're not going to land any votes. And he played his idol out of fear. So I think from that point onwards, I think there was a little bit of listen a little bit more to Aileen. And I think it was hard, to be honest, because I had gone into the game and told everyone that I was just a waitress, when actually my full-time job is also an operations manager for an investment fund, but I kept that to myself. So I think a lot of people thought that I didn't really have the smarts at the time. And I was also really trying to downplay being a Survivor super fan, because I just didn't want all these big targets for no reason to be on me. So yeah.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, I do have to know, did voting for Kelly as opposed to Kirby at the Tribal give you any grace with Kirby moving forward? That was the big blindside attempt where you were expecting 2 idol plays, and you ended up voting for Kelly instead. Did that help you with your relationship with Kirby for the long term?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. And here's the thing, because when back at Rebels, we were going to vote out Rihanna and that didn't happen. I knew that at some point very soon, someone was going to tell Kirby where we were actually sitting, including that I was going to vote out Ree. So I actually decided that in the morning after, I would talk to Kirby and Ree, and I was like, look, this is where I was going to vote. You guys never really asked me to be in your alliance. And then I had pledged my allegiance to Feras, Raymond, and Garrick first. But I told her, I was like, look, we don't know when the tribe swap is happening. Let's still be open to working with each other. And I thought that was genuine, like a genuine confirmation from Kirby. But as she had said previously, once she feels betrayed once, she looks at you at a different way. And so I think she just had those eagle eyes on me. And from then on, always wanted to target me for some reason, even though I even told her after at the Titans camp, I'm not going to write your name down, to prove that I'm still willing to work with you. And so that's why there was so much tension between Garrick and I, because Garrick was so frustrated at why I didn't want to put Kirby's name down. But to me, I just wanted to prove that I'm still open,
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Kirby, what is your reaction to having watched the episode, to having see her plan play out fully, the behind the scenes as you finally get to see? What was that like?
Oh my God, I have so much respect for Kirby. And as a Survivor super fan, you credit her, you respect her, you want to tell everybody that she made the right move. And what people don't see is how endearing Kirby was and is as a person. And that's how she was able to pull everyone in and vote her way. So big props to Kirby. Love her.
I love that you said in your post vote out confessional, I love that you said, if you're going to be taken out of the game, make it a blind side. That's the best possible way to leave. So I really appreciated that outlook. But your vote out, it seemed to get delayed because you had some clutch challenge wins. You had the surprise earn back your vote challenge at the tribal council, and you also won that immunity challenge with the rope on the A-frame. Did you surprise yourself with any of these wins, or did you trust your abilities?
Oh my God, no, I 100% surprised myself. Look, I think of myself as a very average beer pong and cornhole player. Like, I was not expecting any of that, you know. But I think what I was able to prove to myself is when your back is up against the wall and when you literally feel like the world is against you and you're going to go home, you can pull out the win. And I just was like, wow, I found this new version of me that I didn't know existed. And so I feel like I can take this out of the game and apply it to my real life.
And with that being said, and you being a super fan, which I was not aware of until now, to be honest with you, what kind of prep did you do? Like, what was some things you did before going into the game that you were like, I want to practice this?
Well, you know what? Over 20 years of watching the show is what has prepared me for this game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I only found out 3 weeks prior that I was gonna go on, and everyone was like, "Oh my," well, not everyone, because I didn't tell anyone, but in my head, I was like, "Do I prepare for this?" And I was like, "You know what? They've accepted and wanted me for who I am. I've already been keeping active just in my normal life and all my hobbies. I practiced like a 9-piece tanagram puzzle. Didn't realize there was going to be a 25-piece one on there. My goodness. But honestly, I think it's honestly just watching the show for thousands of hours of my life that has prepared me for this.
Nice.
Yeah, and that tribal council, that was a surprise to viewers. I'm sure it was definitely a surprise to all of you. I mean, it really is a highlight of the season for me. Uh, My question was in terms of the strategy. It seems like it was between Charles and Winna to go home because it was you, Feras, and Kirby voting. Why wasn't Valeria in consideration at that time?
Valeria wasn't into we didn't consider her because we've had previous interactions where, for example, what wasn't shown is at the spelling bee challenge, Charles and I were sitting out and I was basically trying to pitch to him in front of Kirby. Like, I knew Kirby was listening because I was trying to be like, I'm open to working with all of y'all. That look, Charles, open to working with you, but also, do you have any advantages or idols that I should be aware of? Just as a like, let's exchange information. But I think he took it the wrong way and thought that I was just trying to get all this information for my alliance and not give anything back. So he went into defensive and interrogation mode and started questioning me about why I wanted all this information. And I was taken aback. Honestly, he did such a good job at lawyering me. And I was like, damn, okay, if this smart and logical person who I could see myself work with doesn't want to work with me, well, then they become my number one threat. And so, from that instance, and also at the tribal council where he basically went at it on me, I was like, he got to go. And so, it was always going to be it was always going to be Charles. And Ferris had the smart idea of splitting the vote on Winna and Charles.
I'm so glad you guys did that. Even when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, yes.
I know. Oh my God. And that's one of the things where in the spur of the moment, you may not think of something like that. So all
Yeah.
props to Ferris. My goodness. Wild.
Yeah, it looked it. It definitely looked it. It was really cool to see that. It was really cool to see that experience for the two of you. And also, I mean, one of the people that when we were talking about people who had brought up your name in interviews and said that we didn't get to see your full relationship with them was Scott. And I keep thinking about that challenge where you got to work on the puzzle together and it was a very successful win. Can you tell us a little bit more about the larger relationship between Scott that we may not have gotten to see as viewers?
Yeah, sure. So Scott and I, we formed a bond on day one. We bonded over Broadway musicals and all of that. And then there was a moment where actually Scott and I became fractured a little bit because we had a discussion about which way we were going to go. And he mentioned something along the lines of, I don't have a good feeling about Garrick. And I was like, oh God. So I actually went to my alliance of Garrick, Feras, and Raymond and said Scott had flipped. And they didn't believe me in the instance. And I sort of had to prove to them that I was telling the truth because I was actually playing double agent really well. They were concerned that I wasn't with them, and for some reason I was like, oh my God. But anyway, and then so we have a bit of a hiccup there, but then we instantly repair that, Scott and I, and we were like, okay, we're going to go our own ways, but we're always going to look out for each other and make sure that our names are never brought up by either alliance. And so when Scott unfortunately left, I actually felt a little more vulnerable because I didn't have that ear anymore to tell me or watch out or look for me. So yeah.
Oh, that's the worst when you have that in and then all of a sudden they're gone. And it's just like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Because Kirby, as you
100%.
said, she's always going to have that kind of feelings towards you, considering all the other things that's happened. And something that I always like to know, as a player and as a super fan especially, is there anything that you can pinpoint, if possible, person, place, thing, moment that you're like, I took that away from Survivor? And I know you talked about kind of proving to yourself that you can do these really hard things and challenges. Was there anything else that you're like, man, this will stick with me forever?
100%. It was the mental endurance, honestly, at that triangle challenge. I have told a bunch of people that if I find the right tattoo, I will tattoo that moment on my body, and I don't have any tattoos. So if anyone has any suggestions, let me know because I'm still open. But I think it's also just being able to prove to my family and my Asian community that you can go and pursue your passions, and you can find success in ultimately unconventional ways, like playing a game of Survivor. And you don't have to find a steady career path and do that for 40 years of your life, and just have fun. And I think I've also given myself more courage to take more risks in my own life, because prior I feel like I had been pretty risk averse, and Survivor has just given me the opportunity to reflect on that. And moving forward, I think I'll be a little bit more adventurous too.
I love
Would
that.
you go back again if asked?
Oh my God, why are you even asking me that question?
I know.
Of course, I feel like I have unfinished business and more of a story to tell everyone. And I appreciate all the love that everyone's been giving me.
Well, we appreciated having you join us for this exit interview. Aileen, it has been so great watching you on this season. I do hope that you get to go back for a second chance at some point. We'll just put it out there into the world. Thank you again for joining us for this exit interview. We have more to come on Survivor Now podcast, and we hope to see you all there. Thanks again.